The night Karen Whitmore was hauled off her mansion steps in handcuffs, still wearing her glittering silver gala dress and screaming, "This is my lake." I didn't feel victorious. I felt stunned. Because 12 months earlier, I was just a beat-up mechanic with a busted spine, a sick wife, and a tiny dream of peace by the water. And somehow, without wanting it, without asking for it, I had become the man who brought down the most powerful HOA tyrant in all of Willow Lake. It's funny looking back now. The whole thing didn't start with handcuffs or FBI raids or bribery briefcases. It started with a shaky wooden dock and a woman who believed everything she could see belonged to her. I remember that first morning so clearly. I'd been down at the shoreline tightening some old bolts, breathing in the cold lake air, feeling for the first time in years like I could breathe without pain. My wife Cheryl was inside resting her joints after a rough night. And then I heard the sharp click, click, click of heels on wood. That was my introduction to Karen Whitmore. Pink lipstick diamonds like tiny suns dangling from her ears, clutching a stack of official papers as if she owned the entire Midwest. She marched right up to me, dropped her sunglasses to the tip of her nose, and announced with the confidence only someone born into money could muster. "This shoreline is part of our community, recreational easement. You can't block access." I stared at her like she'd told me the sky was green. "Ma'am, this is my dock, my land. I literally just bought it." She smiled, but not a friendly smile, more like a smile someone gives right before they push you off a cliff. "We'll see about that." And sure enough, 20 minutes later, Sheriff Morrison pulled into my driveway, lights flashing, windows rolled down like he was responding to a hostage situation instead of a middle-aged man fixing a dock. Turns out Morrison was Karen's golf buddy. Of course he was. Seeing the way he looked at me like I was the problem put a knot in my stomach that never really went away. The next week became a bureaucratic nightmare. Every day some new violation showed up taped to my door. Unapproved shoreline repair, illegal fire pit, mailbox height non-compliance. Even my damn mailbox wasn't safe from her. And the rumors. God, the rumors. Suddenly my little cabin was bringing down property values. Cheryl and I were the wrong element. It felt like high school mean girl politics mixed with small-town corruption. But the breaking point, the moment that snapped something deep inside me, happened on the 4th of July. Cheryl had finally worked up the strength for her evening water therapy. I wrapped a towel around her shoulders, guiding her slowly down to the shore. When we heard laughter, loud, drunken laughter, champagne corks popping, a jazz playlist blasting loud enough to scare the fish, I turned the corner and froze. 20 strangers were partying on my shoreline, on my land. Eating catered lobster off a white table, sipping wine like they were at some luxury resort. And at the head of the table, lifting her glass like the queen of the lake, Karen. "Everyone," she said loudly, pointing her wine glass at me, "this is the unstable neighbor I warned you about. Don't get too close. He's unpredictable." People laughed. They actually laughed. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My chest tightened. I wasn't embarrassed often, but that moment, that humiliation, it hit something raw inside me. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just guided Cheryl back inside and sat in silence for a long time, wondering how someone could take pleasure in crushing others. And that's when the fear started creeping in. What if she can take everything? What if we lose this place? After all those years of saving? What if Cheryl gets worse because of all this stress? There were days I genuinely considered selling. Just packing up, leaving the lake behind, letting Karen win whatever that meant. I felt small, outmatched, and honestly, stupid for thinking a man like me could stand toe-to-toe with someone who practically owned the town. But then, by pure accident, I found something that changed everything. I'd gone to the county office to check on some missing paperwork. The clerk, a bored kid barely out of college, handed me a stack of old property files. Most people would have thrown them aside. But 30 years as a mechanic trained me to read details normal people ignore. And right there, buried in the survey documents, I found it. My land extended 25 feet farther than the map Karen waved in my face. Her rose garden, her fancy outdoor kitchen, half her pool deck, all sitting illegally on my property. I remember whispering, "No way then," remeasuring 3 times just to be sure. But it got better. When I dug deeper, I found her dock had 0 permits. Her underwater lights violated state law, her boat lift was in a protected fish habitat, and she had forged township documents to justify using my shoreline. Suddenly, the chessboard didn't look so one-sided. I filed complaints, actual documented airtight complaints with the State Environmental Office. And when the inspector arrived, clipboard in hand, and started writing citations like he was speeding toward a personal record, I thought maybe, just maybe, I had a fighting chance. But Karen wasn't stupid. She saw the tide turning and she panicked in the only way a narcissist knows how, by escalating everything. She hired lawyers. She bombarded me with lawsuits. She held town meetings claiming I was threatening community values. She installed blinding floodlights aimed at my window. She staged trash on my property, then called inspectors. She even tried to weaponize Adult Protective Services against me, claiming I was abusing Cheryl. And I'll be honest, that one hurt the most, because Cheryl is the one person I've spent my entire life protecting. I hit a wall, a real emotional wall. One night, after another baseless complaint arrived in the mail, I broke. I just sat on the edge of the bed, head in my hands, whispering, I can't win this. She's got the HOA, the sheriff, the zoning office, everything. Cheryl placed her hand on mine, weak, swollen, but steady. We didn't work for 15 years just to let a bully take our home, she whispered. If we walk away now, she'll do this to someone else. That was the moment I chose to fight back. And fate handed me a gift. For sale, 3-acre lakefront parcel north of my property, including majority access to the shoreline. I almost passed out reading the listing, because I already knew who was buying it. Lakeshore Development, LLC, a shell company owned by Surprise Karen's attorney. She wasn't just trying to bully me, she was trying to cut off my entire lake access, then force me to sell cheap. But she made a fatal mistake. Hidden in the ancient deed language was a clause from 1967. Right of first refusal. Meaning legally, I got first dibs, and Karen couldn't do a damn thing to stop me. I exercised that right, bought the property outbidding her by exactly $1, and when the ink dried, I discovered something even more delicious. A legally recorded access road ran straight through Karen's backyard. She'd paved over it, built gardens over it, blocked it illegally for decades, and now I owned it. She lost her mind. She hired college kids to protest with Save Our Lake signs. She staged interviews painting me as a greedy developer. She tried to sue, bribe, intimidate, anything to stop what she knew was coming. But the real crack in her empire appeared at 3:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. My security cameras caught Karen Hood up gloves on dumping industrial algicide into the lake to create a toxic bloom. She wanted the whole shoreline condemned before our community stewardship festival. The footage was crystal clear. Her face lit up by the motion lights, the chemical jugs, the panic when she realized she'd triggered my alarms. I called environmental crimes before the sun even came up. She wasn't done yet. 2 nights later, she sent hired vandals to smash my dock lights and spray paint threats. They panicked when my floodlights kicked in, tripping over my lawn ornaments like toddlers in a haunted house. I yelled from the porch that their license plate was already on video. They peeled out so fast they nearly lost their bumper. Then she filed a police report claiming I'd threatened her with military-grade weapons. Sheriff Morrison arrived with a search warrant, looking more embarrassed than authoritative because even he couldn't pretend her story made sense. And the irony. While he searched my garage, FBI agents were raiding Bradley's zoning office across town. Turns out I wasn't the only one Karen had bullied. There were business owners, elderly residents, contractors, environmental groups, people who'd been quietly suffering under her and Bradley's little empire of bribes and intimidation. Once we connected the dots, everything snowballed. The environmental group had water quality logs proving years of illegal runoff. Channel 7 had been investigating permit corruption tied to Karen's family. Victims came forward with stories of extortion threats, manipulated violations. Federal agents were hungry for evidence, and we had plenty. Still, Karen had one final meltdown left in her. The night of her Save Our Lake Gala, an event dripping with wealth and fake charity. FBI agents walked right into her manicured garden and arrested Bradley in front of 200 guests. The video went viral before dessert. Karen grabbed the mic from the jazz singer and screamed about conspiracies and political attacks. Her mascara streaked down her face. She spun in circles trying to find someone, anyone, to defend her. I don't know what got into me, but I stepped forward. I crossed the property line that started. It all lifted the folder of printed evidence and said, not yelling, just loud enough for the terrified rich people clutching their wine glasses. Folks, she poisoned the lake. She bribed officials. She forged documents. She weaponized the HOA to hurt families who couldn't fight back. This isn't persecution. It's accountability. Karen lost it. She lunged at me, nails out, shrieking words I can't repeat without demonetizing an entire channel. Cameras flashed. Guests backed away. Police officers stepped in and cuffed her while she kicked and screamed and insisted the lake belonged to her, that the town belonged to her, that I was just a nobody. But that was the point. I was a nobody. And I still stopped her. As she was shoved into the cruiser, dress-torn hair wild, screaming about how she'd take us all down. I just stood there breathing in the cool night air, realizing the war was finally over, and the whole lake finally felt quiet. If there's one thing I learned through all this, it's simple. The moment a bully believes they're untouchable is the moment they're one step away from destroying themselves.